Welcome to the Proven Podcast, where it does not matter what you think, only what you can prove. Jeremy Delk proves failure is actually your fastest path to fortune. This serial entrepreneur built two Inc. 500 companies within 4 years and has taken companies both public and private. But his secret weapon isn't avoiding mistakes, it's leveraging them. The show starts now. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm excited about bringing Jeremy on for this one. We're going to talk about success and failure, some of the things that I talk about all the time, which is the only way to succeed is to fail. You're one of those people that do it better than anyone I know. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, man. I'm excited to be here.
So for the people who don't know who you are, and let's talk about your success first, and then we'll talk about all the failures and all the things that got you to that way.
Yeah.
So tell me why, what makes you unbelievably successful?
Yeah. So, the CV business card, right? Two Inc. 500 companies, 24th fastest growing, was the first one. And then I think this last one was like 120th, fastest growing companies, two different businesses inside of 4 years, which is pretty cool. Taking companies public, taking them private. We invest in venture capital opportunities, industry agnostic, a lot in healthcare. Have had a lot of success in real estate as well. So we've got some really cool properties down in the Caribbean and some commercial conversions to resi in the States. So so investor, venture capitalist, and I speak a little bit and do some podcasts like this. And yeah, that's me.
So I'm curious, did you start out successful? Like, what was your background growing up? Were you just born with a silver spoon and money came out of or did your dad give you $1 million to start your empire? Where are you?
I wish. No. So no. So definitely not silver spoon. So I'm from Kentucky. I'm talking to you from Lexington today, but I grew up about an hour away, called a town called Bardstown, Kentucky, which is like the bourbon capital of the world. So super small population. We moved there actually when I was in fourth grade. We lived in Louisville, which is a bigger city. Before that, my dad unfortunately passed away when I was young. So he passed away when I was 7, and he, was a mechanic, engine shop, so entrepreneur, but had like his own little thing. And I always talk about this a lot. You could talk about stability, but you can't teach a kid stability, and it's hard for them to understand it, right? Because it's like oxygen. It's like omnipresent. Like, are we stable? Not stable? Is there enough oxygen in the room? Like that type of thing.
Right.
But you can really feel instability. So it was definitely the opposite of silver spoon. Like we had like a family that loved us, and friends, and like aunts and uncles and all that nuclear family, and then all of a sudden just went away. So you have the loss, and that's a whole thought we can dive and understand, like how you deal with loss and grief and all those things. But that's one piece. But it's really the ripple effect that you don't really think about that happens after. So it went from the 3-bed, 2.5 bath house to a smaller house to an apartment to a shittier apartment. So like that's those levels. So I think no was not always successful. I got an inheritance at 30 grand when I was turning 17. And that started my career on Wall Street, and I started day trading, and I had massive success and a massive failure very early at age 20. But I think the drive for me um, came out of really two main viewpoints, I guess. One is understanding cognizantly, like, hey, it sucks not having resources, because that's what we were in. Like, besides grieving all that stuff, like now my mom had to go to work, and like we had to figure out having aunts and babysitters who can help, look after the 2 kids, a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, for a young single mother now. So, like, that was like, okay, that was a resource or lack of resource problem. Fucking let's fix that shit and make a lot of money, right? So I think that was like the motivation piece. And I think the other, which unfortunately, I had experienced at a young age, a very hard lesson that we all learn, that we're not promised tomorrow. So I think that's probably that drive, and then like the determination point of like, let's just go and take action, is probably from that. Because like, dude, we don't know. Like, who knows after this podcast what happens? God forbid, right? So I think you just gotta seize every moment and every opportunity, and look at it as a blessing every day you get to wake up.
Yeah, I agree. People talk about this all the time about being able to succeed your way to success or fail your way to success. And I always talk about it with a child. If, because you've got little ones, if you're sitting there and when your little one was first learning how to walk, and maybe the first 10 times she fell and, she landed on her tush and it didn't work out so well. I know you, just like every other parent, was like, you know what? She's never going to walk. We're going to buy her a wheelchair. That's going to be the end of it. Doesn't make any sense at all. We sit down and we teach our kids from very, like, just keep doing it. You're going to learn
Yeah,
how to walk. It's just
yeah, yeah,
unacceptable to give up. And I
yeah.
think For a lot of people, they expect that every time they go up to bat, they're gonna hit a grand slam. Every time they're gonna hit a home run and they're gonna crush it, and that's just not the reality we're brought into. You know, I very similar to you, I did not I came from a broken home for different reasons. You know, you, ran into a little bit of different one, and then I spent 8 years in hospice watching people die. People don't understand how motivating that is to really
Yeah.
get going, and I am grateful all the struggles and all the failures because that's what's made me successful, and there's a lot of people right now who are listening going, "Wait, what? You're grateful for all this pain." I wasn't grateful at the time that it was
No.
happening. At the time, I was
Yeah.
like, "This sucks. I really don't want this." I would have it the other way.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And it's hard to take and learn the lesson in the moment. So I tell people, like, it's okay. You don't have to, like, be some fake person that has, like, some tragedy, like, "Okay, it's all great, like, this is meant to be." Like, it's okay to, like, grieve, and, like, when I, lost $2,000,000 in 4 days, like, I drank myself, to bed every morning, and woke up with I mean, it was, like, for, like, 4 days, and, I was like, "Okay, this ain't fucking fixing it," right? So, so now it's more of like, "All right, buddy, like, cry, do it, then get yourself through it, but just hurry up." Whatever you do, scream, punch a
Yeah.
wall, just go through because once you realize that none of that's fucking productive, right? It's okay to do it, but just don't dwell on it and be cognizant enough. Like it just the more you do that is the longer you're going to delay fixing the damn thing.
There's this thing in Judaism, which I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form. It's called Shiva, which means if someone dies,
Such
you've got a week.
yeah,
Get to say, and
such
you're
a
not allowed to do anything. And
yeah,
everyone shows up and they feed you, and other than wiping your tuchus, they do everything for you. And
yeah,
then after the week, they're like, "All right, now, great, let's go. Let's get back
yeah,
to it. Let's get something." So I think there is value in that. But
yeah,
you've talked about some big hits and how to go through it. You know, you've lost a parent, you've lost a ton of cash, you've run through these hurdles and done these things. Can you kind of give some people more ideas and dive into those a little bit deeper so that people can understand what loss and failure looks like? And then obviously because we've just heard we heard the CV side, right? Like, hey,
yeah,
fastest growing and I've done this and I traded and I make all this money and blah blah blah. But
yeah.
people always see the end. They don't see the process. They always see how the end result of the cake. They don't show the years it took to learn how to make that cake. So if you could share some of the trials and tribulations.
Yeah, it's I always say I'm an overnight success, 25 years in the making, right? And even when I'm coaching, that's when I'm coaching clients and talking to them about like what's going on with their challenges, it's not like I'm that smart and I've just read every book and I have all the fucking answers. All the answers I have are product of my environment and my experiences. And a lot of the lessons you really learn that you really keep are the ones that you get your ass kicked and the failures. Like that's the piece. You don't. It's hard to learn from the success because you're just patting yourself on the back. I'm a fucking great thing. Let's face it. Most things, including me and you, there's a massive amount of luck. Now, I would agree that you make yourself more lucky by the more reps you're doing, the more things like that you like luck finds you. I think that that's a piece, but it's just doing the actions, kind of going through and then understanding it. So I think the first big lesson is, I told you I was drinking for 4 days, in my townhouse that I bought like as a college freshman when I lost all that money. And I didn't see the lesson other than, probably 2 or 3 years later, first lesson was I was day trading, lost all that money. But I had a condo, I had all these expenses. So I had a choice. I could like pack it in and go home with my mom or like figure it out, buddy, and buck up. So switched to night school and started doing things. And I talk about this in the book, but through a series of odd jobs, like all of that self-taught chaos, but I was so entrenched in the market, I learned a lot was like a little bit of a tool that you kind of pick up. So think of it like as you played Zelda or playing a legend game or something like that. It's like another little thing that you pick up on your journey that's going to be valuable to you that you don't maybe know it, but whatever. It's like, hey, I'm a massive failure. I lost all this money. But that led me to have a conversation to my future boss at Fidelity to make me the youngest trader in Fidelity Investments history, right? That was pretty cool. Series 7 license and before I even graduated college. And it was because I was this young, cocky kid, but I had a lot of market knowledge and depth, and that was very impressive. I could kind of go through and do it. So like that was like one thing you don't ever know how one experience is going to lead to it. And I talk about in the book, my early dreams was to kind of make it to New York, and that's what took me there. Was ended up going to Wall Street. The bigger lesson, and I think this is what people forget about with loss or failure, is you set Shiva for 5 days or, whatever the time period is, or 7 days, like the 3 days of me drinking for four. after we go through it, like we want to block that shit out because like our humans are we're innately self-protective. Like fuck, that shit sucked. Let's not think about that. And I'm definitely not one to look at life in the rear view, but you need to look at those lessons and understand the strength that you have inside is fucking massive. Because I was the biggest, and everyone you're listening to the same thing. I was the biggest failure ever, and I lost $2 million. But then I got through it, and I ended up getting a job on Wall Street and going to all these things. So when it was a time for me to start Delk Enterprises, and I left my high paying job, which my mom thought I was crazy for, like, dude, you just saved yourself. What the fuck's wrong with you? But it was the courage. And I asked myself one simple question: is there a model or a scenario that if I go out and start my own company, that I will lose $2 million in 4 days? And the answer was no. There was no path for me to
A little
do
hard
that.
to do that.
Yeah. So if I don't do that and I fucking got through it, what's the worst that can happen? I can always go back and kind of go. So that you use that as the fuel and the energy and really the courage, the belief to kind of, all right, let's go through and take that next step. Because the fear is all internal. 100%. It's all what we're telling ourselves. And that negative self-talk, I think that's the big driving piece.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about loss and you're talking about failures, you've been around death intimately in your family. I've lost members of my family, and I've been around death immensely. Understanding that you dive into it and you don't live in it every single day, but you don't wash it away. It's something that you always tap into. It's something that always comes in. It's always top of mind because there's always a lesson in that. And there's this whole idea that if what you resist persists. And there's times where I am just not firing all four cylinders. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes six. But I'm just, as I get older, I lose cylinders. But as we go into that ball game where I'm just not firing, and there's part of me that just wants to scream and yell and say you're a failure and all that, and I will jump into it and I will sit down and I will, for lack of a term, feed that wolf, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Where am I failure? Where do I suck? What have I done? Because it's probably trying to tell me something. It's
Yeah.
probably saying, hey, you're not prepared for this. You're not prepared for that. So when someone's going through these, there's very specific tactics and questions I use when you're going through these type of loss. Let's go with the basic financial loss. And we talked about this before, that you're not an entrepreneur until you've lost your first million. Just it is.
Right.
When you lose your first million, you're like, oh, welcome to the club. Wait till you
No,
lose.
exactly.
Okay, then once you lose your first eight, then once you lose your first 80. That's entrepreneurship. And society's made it all sexy. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Exactly. With
yachts
Shark
and fun.
Tank. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Wait till you lose your first million. You're like, oh, welcome to the club. Yes. Hello,
Right.
hello, hello. It is what it is. It's going to happen as entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
I've rode motorcycles for years. We always talk about it. You're either in the process, there's only two type of riders. People have gone down and people going down. That's
Yeah.
it. If you
Right.
haven't gone down yet, you will
You're
soon.
going.
Don't worry about it. If you haven't lost your first million, don't worry. You will soon. You will lose it from family betrayal, from partner betrayal, from bad
Yeah.
business deals. You will lose it. Just be to understand that's part of the process. It is what it is. Just like we talked about the baby falling down and busting our butt.
Mhm.
What are some of the questions you immediately address when you're like, okay, I'm in a place where I'm spinning out. I completely don't think I'm enough. I'm completely failed. What are the ways that you go through?
So the first thing I try to do is find the humor in a bad thing, and I turn it into a curiosity. So like most people dwell on the thing. I just got like a bill for $1 million. Like I don't know, one point. Let's say this is 1.7 million for a project that they're doing. Like it's more than I thought. Like that sucks, but like okay, I can just keep staring at it. The numbers aren't going to change. I keep like, wow, what am I like? And then like, oh, what am I going to do? And like, you can just go down that path, or you just like, all right, well, whatever. Like, that sucks. It'll be interesting how this works out. And then like, you just find it. Like, I mean, the secret to being in business is just staying in business. Like, stay alive one more day in business, because you know how things happen. Like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I've got nothing, and then all of a sudden, like, literally, this happened to me. This happened to me um, 2 weeks ago. One of the business we invested in, I see the bank accounts, but I don't really pay attention. And, he wasn't doing a ton, and he's changed his business model a little bit. And like, I kind of literally was about to kind of have a conversation about like, hey, let's just probably write this business off, or I'll sell my equity back for a little bit, whatever. And he's like, hey, can you just confirm your bank details? I'm like, why? He's like, I got 100,000. I'm wiring you for, I'm like, oh, yes, I can confirm.
Right. Yeah.
So like, you just don't know what kind of go through. So I turned it into a curiosity of like, this is going to be funny. This will be interesting how it works out. And then it does. And that's kind of how it is. So you turn that in that curiosity. That's how I look at business and investments. I'm a consummate learner, and I'm genuinely curious and like to create and understand and have those breakthroughs. That's why coaching is so much fun for me. Because like, I do it for myself, but seeing people have those big breakthroughs of like, it's magic. You see that, you're like, yeah, now let's go. And it's really them that are doing it. So you're just helping them ask those questions and process it a bit.
It's funny because I've coached for years and helped strategize and scale companies. Everyone thinks that you're coaching your client. You're not. You're coaching you. You just
Yeah.
happen to be coaching you the whole time, and they're like, "Oh, this is great advice." I'm like, "Yes, that is great advice.
Great
I should
advice.
follow it for myself." That happens all the time. This idea of imposter syndrome. There's I've been on stage more times than I can possibly tell you. Every time I walk out, I'm like, "Well, should I be? Why are they listening to me?" Because there's always
Right.
that little fear, right? That's an imposter in the back going, "I'm just this poor kid from Hialeah. What am I doing? Why am I here?" So staying curious is important, but when you deal with loss, specifically, and we're going to get a little dark here, but when you deal with death on a high
Mm.
level, especially at such a young age, I found ways to go through it because I was exposed from first the stranger side because I just watched it so much at hospice, and then when my family members died, I know there's certain things that I've learned that I'll speak about in a second. But what are the things that when you have death hit you on such an intense level when it was your father? What are the ways that now that's changed you, but also that you can process that? Because there's people going through massive loss.
Yeah. Well, the way I actually processed it was, probably mid six figures of a lot of therapy because I didn't. I tell you how not to do it. Like I did it. Um, you know, this actually, I think is a good question because I don't think I've been asked to that specificity. So, what a natural instinct to do, at least what I did, was what's the best way to not get hurt again,
Mhm.
right? Like, that was the thought, right? Like, how do you not get hurt? So it goes into, like, massive, like, self-protection mode, and I did that fucking very successfully for years. The trick, and I can everyone write this down, just have no actual real connection in your life. Like
Yep,
that's
that'll do it.
and you're good. You will
Yeah.
never ever get hurt. Ever, ever. Just that's the answer. And that's what I was doing. So like what so I would have drinking or I'd go, probably whatever. Some people like would drink because they're upset or like want to forget. Like I would drink to almost feel.
Mhm.
It's like I wouldn't allow myself
Right.
to actually feel because like that shit sucks. Like let's just not feel it. So it was when like as opposed like people drink I was like more like losing inhibitions to let me be vulnerable. So I think that's the piece. So you have to look at it as nothing is happening to you or for you. Like this is a process, is a natural thing. Just like you're either down or going down, right?
Yeah.
We are all headed to the same place, right? Different times of checkout, but we're all heading to the same place. So once you get comfortable with that, then I think you have to look at the same thing, just like a bad business thing. It didn't happen to you. Like my dad dying wasn't my fault. Like, but there was a period of time
You
when you
absolutely
thought,
thought it was. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So I think that's the way to look at it. Like, hey, understand this is a natural thing. Understand that your feelings are um okay. And it's okay to experience them, but like don't let them define you from that piece. And again, I'm obviously clearly joking about not having a meaningful relationship, but my therapist actually said this to me. And it was the most genius aha thing because I was like fighting it. I'm like, dude, no, I'm good. Like I can love people, I can be nice, I can do that, but like don't want to get too close or be too vulnerable
Mhm.
because then I can get hurt. So the way she framed it for me, which was just like, wow, a ton of bricks, was like, and this is dark, but like, okay, you've got a kid, I've got three kids, you've got children. Imagine, God forbid, something was going to happen to one of your kids in 2 years, 3 years, whatever the event is. And it's certain, like it's going to happen. Like it's a medical thing, it's an accident, whatever, and they're no longer with you. Like that's going to happen. So by your logic, Jeremy, should you now stop loving your kid? or like slow it's like yeah, it blows your mind because like, of course not.
Mhm.
But that's what you're saying if you don't want to have a meaningful relationship. So I think that's the piece of like, of course that's asinine. So you would never do that. So you have to take that preposterous example to look back and like, no, let's be vulnerable. Let's have deep connections and understand that all you can do is control what you can control. And that's your who you love, how you love, who you are, your character, all those things. And once you get comfortable with who you are as a person and you're happy, you love yourself, you're happy with yourself, then you can start loving others and go from there.
Right. Now, I love that, you got individuals who are very, very successful, and it's still going against the grain a little bit to talk about it, but how powerful therapy is. And, I think therapy is the gift you give yourself. And
Yeah.
I very similar to you, I was an individual who's like, "Hey, I got hurt. I'm never gonna let someone else in. I'm gonna build these walls. And walls are great. They're very good at keeping people out,
Yeah.
but they're also very good at locking you in and you isolate. And learning through my own ways and my own path through therapy of going, that we are worthy of love. Because the equation is really simple. Everyone thinks it's if I do this, I'll be enough, and if I'm enough, I'll be worthy of love. And that's just complete shite. It's complete and utter garbage. Because if you think about the person in your life that you love the most, and you ask yourself, what does that person have to do to be worthy of my love? What do they have to, or else the answer is
Yeah.
nothing. But then when you reverse it and say, okay, what do I have to do to be, and then you'll create this laundry list. As soon as you can break that
Yeah.
pattern, life gets really easy.
Yeah.
And so I love that you're strong enough to share about therapy. One of the things that I ran into with therapy was how fast therapists are to label you, how fast they're going to say, hey, you're a this, you're a that, you're a this,
Yeah.
and how fast I wanted to have those as well. I'm like, oh yeah, I am this, because then I had an
That's right.
excuse. I had an exit
Yeah.
strategy. I'm like, oh yes, I am this type of person. You can't blame me anymore. I've got my escape
Right.
versus shit. I need to work on my stuff. I need
Yeah.
to honestly, and because until you embrace radical forgiveness, until you look in the mirror and say, hey, you know what? There are people out there who genuinely and authentically want to love you as you are, and you don't
Yeah.
have to change the ball game. That is a hard thing to do because you're just going to hurt a ton of people. And that's a hard lesson to learn because you're going to push away some of the greatest gifts that you've ever had in your life. And I can, for those of you who are watching the video, you can see on Jeremy's face, he's experienced that as well. We've
Yes.
all done that. We have lost people who we desperately wish we did not lose.
Yep.
So if you haven't gone through therapy, do it now. Just
Yeah.
it's a gift you give yourself. What are the other than the lessons she gave you? What are some of the other lessons as you've gone through therapy and as you've gone through loss? Because that's really what this is about: how to survive failures, how to survive loss, and become successful. What is another one that just immediately just smacks you in the face? You're like, oh wow, that okay.
Yeah, so I went through a really bad divorce, and, like, that was, like I was doing therapy, like, intense, like,
Mhm,
2-hour sessions every day, like, it was, like, some deep shit I was going through
mhm.
because I was like, "Go figure, obsessive entrepreneur, like, let's just solve it, like,
Absolutely.
let's just fucking I can't wait a week for this, let's fucking hammer it, go."
Mhm,
I probably would've done 8-hour days if she would've let me, but probably wasn't healthy, but, I struggled a lot, um, with because to me, a divorce was a pretty big ultimate failure, like, I mean, like, big, like, you like, that's like, it was so I struggled, um, if I'm honest, with like, what are people going to say and think, right? That was like partly it. What took the longest was, for my kids, like, because everyone, you've heard this so many times, like, parents get divorced when the kids go to college, and
mhm,
like the kids say, like, dude, why the fuck didn't you do that earlier? Like, because they see misery, but you don't know that, right? So, so I was really struggling with that. So the two things that she told me, because my ex-wife and I, we weren't like fighting or yelling. There was never talks, but there was just no love or no true connection. So I've got, 3 kids, boy, girl, boy. And she just, another thing that was just like dropped the bomb on me, like what your kids see,
mhm,
especially your daughter,
mhm,
how they see your relationship with your spouse
mhm.
is the exact thing they're going to emulate to try to find,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Absolutely.
like, if you have if that's the example you want to set, and that's like a loveless, non-passion, joking, like, my wife and I had a water fight last fucking week, and like, I mean, like, that kind of playfulness it's contagious. You see it on the kids, and they're kind of going through. So that kind of reassured me on that piece, and like now, and I talk about some stories in the book that really get me choked up of like, it was the right decision because like you can see your kids like so much happier. So that's number one. But then the secondary piece was like, what are people going to say? And it was through that breakthrough that really I think set me free. And I talk about it all the time. Is she like, and what I say is like, no one cares about you, and that seems harsh, but like
It's
they
true.
don't. They don't. What they care about is them fucking selves. And
Yes.
like, yes, you're divorced and people know you. Okay,
Mhm.
it, it'll be a thing for a few days or a week, but then like it goes like the news cycle 24/7, it cycles through so quickly. And you're right. And it does. So I talk about that now in coaching. So like, yeah, that was my fear of like, oh, what are people going to say? And I never looked at it in business because I always have such confidence in business that you can't beat me. You fucking just can't. I will outwork you. You can't kill me. Like I just will. I'm relentless. You cannot beat me in business. So I never saw it because I never like if I offended someone, like, I don't give a fuck. Like I'm just doing me. So I never saw that piece from a very like, what do people think? What will people say? Until that piece, but it's actually helped me in business as well. When you kind of like, hey, like I'm doing my right thing. This is my North Star. I know I'm doing this for the right reasons, and that's it. And you're okay with it. Who cares?
And I also think there's going to be times you're going to miss your North Star. None of us are perfect. Some of our times, our characters are going to fail. We're not going to do what we, the ideal version of us would do. We're going to misfire. And that's okay too. And just having honor with it. And we talked about it in the beginning of this, where it's like, if you haven't lost $1 million yet, then we're probably not going to be doing business together. Because this is the reality. And we expect the failures. I would rather hire the person that just lost everything and completely screws up and learn how to come back from that than the person who's never done that, because they come back stronger. And we do it in business versus anywhere else.
I don't know if we talked. I don't know if we talked about this in the green room or not, but like, 100%. Like whenever I'm interviewing, and getting pitched deals, like especially these days, like later in my life, like it's very rare I will invest in someone that hasn't went through a cycle.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you just get some like you want some grit. Like you want that. Like that's super, super important.
Especially where the economy is going now. We're going to have some bumps. It is what it is. No matter what happens, no matter whatever soap opera, be it the left or the right, whatever you're listening to, we're going to have some bumps. And being able to handle that's so important.
I'm going to throw you for a big open-ended question, but we were just having a dialogue last night. We had a big barrel pick of some really cool fancy bourbon at some buddies, and just great conversation with some good guys. And like, probably drank too much bourbon, but it's really, really good conversation. And I'd love to get your thoughts on where is the future in the next 5 to 10 years, with what's coming with AI, right? I mean, we use AI. We've spent a lot of money in AI. We've invested a lot in AI. We use AI in our business every day. Everyone is using AI. We put 750,000 last year on a LLM that's now like not even worthless anymore because of now that it's moving so quickly. We have a couple we're working on. I think it's the biggest like invention since like the wheel, right? I think that's how kind of big it is. I think you kind of gather from me, I'm a pretty fucking glass half full optimistic guy, and I'm so excited for what it can do and some of the applications we're going for. But there is the part of me, and like, okay, you hear like Elon talking like, the drone monster robots to just fucking take over and kill everybody, right? I think that's not the worry for me, and maybe it's a real concern. The concern or question that I'm curious about: what do we have? 320, 350, 360 million people in this country. I think there's a real world where the haves and have-nots and this the separation of this wealth gap. I think there's a world where we could be India. I think, right? You look at that, the mass disparity in wealth, just on the jobs, with robots and AI, like just the amount of work we're starting happening at Tesla with manufacturing and stuff. Like, I just really curious on your thoughts. Again, I'm the most glass half full guy, but it's just such a disruptive thing. I mean, it's the wheel, it's electricity. I mean, it's such an omnipresent thing that's only going to excel. And I don't think it's going to excel 20 years from now. I think it's the next 5 to 10. So I'd love to get your take on that.
So I'm not an optimist, nor am I a pessimist. I'm a realist. I'm like, is it, the glass, is it half empty? It's a glass of water. Get over it. It depends on how fucking thirsty I am. If I'm thirsty, then I need more water. If I'm not thirsty, then it's fine. So I'm very much a realist. And I think one of the things that we go into as you get into this ball game, you have to get the soap opera out of the way. So if you're extremely left-leaning or extremely right-leaning, you need to put that away right now. That's not what we're talking about here. You need to have conversations that are unchangeable. So for example, geopolitical. If you look at birth rates, the birth rates that are happening right now in China are less than what the Jews had during the Holocaust. Period. And when I talk about birth rates, if you have 2 children, your birth rate is 2. If you have 3 children, your birth rate is 3. If I have 0 children, when you do the difference between you and, if you had 2 and I had, because I don't want, no, if you have 3 and if I have none, the answer is 1.5. In order to sustain a species, you have to have a birth rate of at least 2 to 2.2 to continue to do that. That hasn't been the case in the modern world for 60 years in most of Well, Europe's been 1.8 to 1.6. So no matter what happens, and there's a great guy named Peter Zahan who talks about this in detail. If you just look at the data, this is the last decade for China. This is the last decade for Russia. This is the last decade for Germany. This is the last decade for Italy. It is what it is. Because they stopped banging 40 to 60 years ago, even if we did forced birth camps right now, where basically we forced women to have babies, you're still looking at 20 years out. So no matter what happens, we don't have enough people. And when you look at this
Really?
on this level, yeah. So when you look at this, like right now, we get less than 4% of our oil from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Period. We get less than 4%.
Mhm.
We do not have enough people to govern the world the way we used to. Period. So even if we wanted to protect the Middle East, which we don't, there's no benefit for us doing that.
Mhm.
We don't have the ability to do it. Just it is what it is. So we have to look at practical numbers. When you look at like EVs taking over, and I will get back to your question. When you look at EVs take over, you need 4 times the amount of lithium that's ever been mined out of the world in order to make that accomplish. It's not going to happen. We just don't have the science for it right now.
Mhm.
So when it comes to AI, we're running into, again, Germany's got the oldest population it's ever had. China's got the oldest population it's ever had. Italy's got the oldest population. Russia's got the oldest population. They're aging out. There's nothing you can do that's going to change that. We've never dealt with this as a species before. This happened because we industrialized. We went from agricultural to industrial. And when you go into industrial in this situation, you don't have those little horrible little brats because they're expensive. You have less of them because you don't need farm workers. And then sooner or later, you're like, we don't want any of them because they're annoying. So we've had that change as you industrialize. But to answer about AI, we started agricultural. That's what we did. And then that revolution came in and we didn't have to be hunter-gatherers anymore. And that changed. There were jobs that were created that had never been thought before. From there, we went into industrial, and which means bazillions of jobs were wiped out, just completely exterminated on the agricultural side. Then we went, in industrial, and then we had that. Then we had the technology boom. And everyone's like, oh my God, tech's here. It's going to wipe out jobs. And it did. It crushed jobs. When I
Yeah.
was in college, the job I had was not the job that they were training me for. So when you come into these things, when you have these era of changes, the technological revolution wiped out industrial-based jobs, just crushed them. Look at Amazon. Look what it did to Walmart and Sears and all of that. Crushed them. AI is going to do the same thing. It is going to exterminate walls of jobs, and it's
Yeah.
going to create walls of other jobs.
What do you think what and I guess that's the hard piece. So it's fair, right? They have it's a very good examples with like especially agricultural revolution and the industrial, but I just don't like trying to look forward to it though. Like I could see that, right? And maybe it's easier to see because it's retrospective. Like okay, that was a pivot, and this is a new job creation, but I just don't see with the humanoid robots that are coming and AI. I don't know what that because like, what is it? It's compute. Like the machines are doing the work. So I don't know
Well,
the job. I mean,
right. So
we're looking at from out of real estate side. We're looking at like who any facility that has like grandfathered in high amounts of voltage and like volume. Like those sites are worth a lot of money because like that's where it all is. Data centers in this country compute. So like I see that, but that's just a asset play. I don't see the
so
job.
anything that's content, creative, any of that, it's over. It's absolutely over. And you
Yeah.
talked about, 5, 10 years from now. No. We just ran a bunch of stuff through AI with we had a program that because we need to do photo shoots. And one of my sons like, no, we don't. We took photo shoots that I had before, we load it in the AI, and we're like, well, that just saved me thousands of dollars on photo shoots. We're just going to use those, and they're
Right.
just better.
Yeah.
We digitized my voice so we can have podcasts that are automated and it sounds like me talking to someone else. Google does that. So those are being eliminated. Those jobs are being exterminated. But when we go into anything creative, it's gone. I think your blue collar workers, the people who can fix things and plumbers and build things, that will come back on a high level because we're going to need that, especially here in the United States, as the United
Yeah.
States, because we've had 9 presidential elections that have elected presidents that are more isolationist than the previous ones. They're all just isolationists.
Yeah.
We don't care anymore about the rest of the world. So I think where the new jobs will come that we've never even thought of before, but we're running into problems that we've never had before. So there will be massive new jobs to replace nurses and doctors and all of that. But robotics, we're not anywhere near that. If you have any doubt on that, I mean, we're recording this in 2025, I think at this point.
Mhm.
We're recording this 2025. Go into ChatGPT and play the game of 20 questions. Which is, if you don't know what the game of 20 questions is, just say, hey, I'm thinking of an animal. And it'll say, is it a mammal? And 4 seconds later, it's going to ask you again, is it a mammal? You're like, oh my God, it's just not there yet. Now, in 2, 3 years from there, absolutely. But when we had this fear about technological revolution, look at the people who made all this money on Bitcoin or crypto or trading at home. You did this. You were a trader.
Mhm.
If I told you a guy could sit in his PJs at home and do 7, 8 figures, if I told you that 20, 30 years ago, you're like, "You're out of your mind." Now
Mhm.
that's normal. I'm working on with another guy who's gonna come on the podcast. He has a robot that just does Forex. So, for those of you who's playing at home, Forex is for an exchange. You're trading currencies. You're allowed to do it at very high leverage. He built a robot. He's getting 6% a week on it, and it's just consistently like clockwork. Gets 6.3% on this one, no matter what. He's been doing it for like 7, 8 years, and it just rocket firing like crazy. So the idea to be able to make that money and to do those things, if you're walking into it being, "Okay, I'm afraid of this," then you lose. It's like those people who don't let their kids get on the internet and don't have tablets. What world are you preparing them for? So I think
Right.
AI is gonna be phenomenal for creating massive amounts of jobs, but it's also gonna crush an immense amount of jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I just know, like, you familiar with Kurzweil?
Mm-mm,
Ray Kurzweil?
no.
So, it's a good book, old book. It's called The Singularity is Near, and, like, that's the idea, like, the whole idea of, like, when man and robot kinda combine in that
Mhm.
humanoid type of thing, and with these nanobots, and that's the idea, how to live forever, and,
I
we'll
think
see.
we've got some, we're more divided, at least here in the United States, than we've been since the Civil War.
Mhm,
That no matter what side you're on, as you pull away rights from a person and you take away something that they used to have as a right, which we don't have the Bill of Rights. We have the Bill of Options or the Bill of Temporary Conveniences. Because we don't actually have rights. If you don't believe me, go look up 1940s Japanese containment camp for Japanese Americans, and it'll tell you all about your precious Bill of Rights. We live in a world where we're taking away rights from people. If you agree with them or don't agree with them, and you're forcing your belief upon them, those people ultimately revolt. Period.
mhm,
So, in order to get to where we want to get to with the humanoid and the singularity and all that, you've got to deal with the fact that 70% of the country's pissed and they're
yeah,
not going to walk away from this and
right,
it's
right,
going to get nasty. So, you also got, Europe in this situation they're upset with us right now. And as they pull back, how long do you think Germany, as we destabilize away from them, how long do you think Germany's going to pay for Greece's debt? You're gonna go back to what it was 80, 90, 100 years ago before the World War II. Germany's not gonna pay for this stuff for long. So you have a destabilizing of the entire idea. But,
right,
kinda going back to more of what we're talking about, how to be successful through failure. When we talked about personal loss. We talked about, the divorce from the parent, from your wife. We've talked about the loss of, of your dad. What do you do when you have business losses? And what are some of the business losses you've had?
ah, I mean, we need another podcast, all kinds. I mean, I turned down $600 million for one of my businesses that I was sure I'd get a billion for. Um, Ended up getting raided by the FBI, fined by the FDA, and I sold it for 6 million. So, like, uh, half a billy
So
lost.
how do you deal with that? What is
Laugh,
the ways that you push through that?
laugh. It's a story. I mean, it's part of the journey. Like, I mean, I looked at it, and I would do it again,
Mhm.
which is probably thinking, well, I'm crazy, but um, I at that time I was making uh, more money than I could spend. I have billionaire friends, and we weren't living any differently other than I was chartering my jet, and he owned his. That was literally the only difference.
Mhm.
And some hillbilly kid from small town Kentucky,
Mhm.
few people get a shot at taking down a Billy, like few people. So that was me. Like, fuck it. Like, what's going to change other than tax bill, whatever? Like, what am I going to do? Like, this is my opportunity. Let's go and do it. And I just punted and kicked it down. So when all that shit happened, in the moment, did I feel smart? No, I felt like the biggest idiot ever. But again, if you let time and reflection guide you and know that there is a lesson come, no, I don't know when you're going to learn it, but there's a lesson that's happened and it's going to come to you. So for me, in that instance, um, it's having confidence to know that, like, there's this too will pass. If it's really, really good,
Mhm.
this too will pass. If it's really, really bad, this too will pass. So the lesson on that is that happened. That was an Inc. 500 company, disastrous, whatever. This was right during COVID. I actually got an offer for 12 million, but it would have shut down the company and reload. And I would have cost 120 jobs during a fucking pandemic.
Right.
$6 million wasn't worth that to me, right? Like I live in this town, no way. That company is still operating and going and just did a massive renovation. So jobs are saved. All is right in the world. 6 months before all that happened, we had an idea for another company to look at diagnostics and biological age and what have you. We'd spent $1 million on equipment. That's how much cash we had. That equipment had been sitting in our warehouse for 9 months. I don't know if we ever would have fucking set the equipment up. But after all this stuff, like, okay, well, maybe we should start to look to pivot. That was my second Inc. 500 company.
And I think, talk about when there's failure, you don't feel very smart. Like, God, I'm an idiot. There's this big failure.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you've had the similar experience I've had where there was massive success and you turn around and you're like, I have no idea how this happened. Because there's deals I've closed where I'm like, I'm not that smart. How is this? So,
Yeah.
as you said earlier on it, there's a little bit of luck with this. There's a little bit of luck. It's just putting out there and swinging.
Yeah, there's a ton of luck, but no one's any different than you. Like anyone that I mean, well, maybe Elon. Elon is just he's next level. He's not from this world. I don't think he's something different. But no one else is any different than you, right? And I think I've been in the rooms. I've been on the stage. I've been there. I've met them. I've done deals with them, and they're just like you. And they took a chance, and they had passion, and they wanted to make an impact, and they fucking said no to failure and said, fucking, it ain't going to stop me. It's accepted. It's part of the process. And, you can fight it, but you're not going to win. Embrace it and make it part of your tool belt.
Yeah, I think the most powerful lesson I learned in business and scaling and being able to survive is you don't matter. And it's nothing personal to anybody out there. I don't matter. No one else matters. And this happened because there were two guys. They both went to Ivy League schools. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And they went and they bought this pickling packing company. So they pickled pig's feet and they pickled eggs. And I was like, what the heck? And they bought this company. And it was two guys. And I was 20 something at the time. I came in to run the IT division. And I was like, dude, it's one computer. What? You don't need it. He's like, yeah, but we need someone to make sure the computer works. I was like, you make enough money, set up 7 computers. What are you talking about? So I just set up a computer, had a spare one, and put everything else in the cloud. We did all that for him. And I was like, what are you doing here? He's like, well, we bought this company. It was complete caca. It just wasn't doing well. He goes, but we connected and we now distribute our stuff through Costco and all these other places. And I was like, so what's production look like? He goes, well, we have these containers and we drop in pig's feet and we drop in eggs and we fill it with the fluid. We seal it up and we leave it in the warehouse. And I was like, well, what about your product? He goes, it pickles. The longer it's in, the better it is. And I was like, son of a gun. I was like, do you guys study this or do all that? He's like, no, we just saw the deal. We thought it was easy and we just went for it. And they're multi-millionaires and they ended up selling the company and they made an absolute fortune, but they took themselves out of the equation. So I think when you're running into this and you're worried about, oh, how am I going to fail? How am I going to survive? How am I going to rebuild? Take your butt out of the equation. Because if you're not scaling, if you look at the numbers, either in your bank account or on your scale, your actual weight scale, that is a result of your discipline and who you are.
Yeah.
You've chosen to get there. If you are a large individual who eats 700 cakes a day and you're wondering why you can't run a triathlon, ta-da. If you look in the mirror and you're blown away with how you look, that's on you. Same thing with your bank account. Sitting down, we yield to our fear and we yield to comfort. And if you can't push through those, you lose just all day, every day. When you're coaching people, and you talked about you've started doing that. What are your normal clients when they come to you, and what are some of the questions you ask right off the bat?
So, because I'm in healthcare for whatever reason, I have a lot of doctors that come through because they're good at doctoring but suck at business and they didn't learn that. So that's where it starts, and they all come to me for the wrong problems, and like that's part of it, like getting them direction on like, okay, what is it? Because like, why are you? Is that really your problem, or that what you think the symptom is, or kind of going through it? So a lot of it is how to optimize the business and the process where the business runs without you, just to what your point is, like that business is its own entity. And what that allows you to do is get the fuck out of it, right? Like I do, and like let the system, the process that you like, that kind of run. Then you can be whatever you want. You can do podcasts. You can be more creative. You can go to real estate. You can do other things. So that's the first piece. That's sadly it's pretty easy for me, but like it's a lot of value for them, so I do it. After we kind of get that piece, or in parallel, it's a lot of the internal like self work. I just enjoy that, right? I enjoy like helping people have those breakthroughs way more than business. Business is fucking easy, and I'm not trying to be
No, it is.
passive. It's just
Awesome.
business. Like
Yeah.
But like,
What
there's just, I really loved seeing like that breakthrough. Like, okay, now we got that sorted.
Mhm.
How are you? What are you going to do? I got you all kinds of time now. What's your passion? What do you, and then you would not imagine most of the time,
They have no idea.
I don't know. What? Like, it's like they've
Because
just
they've been
lived in
running away
stone of
from the
like,
wolf for so long. They've been trying to get away from the lion, and now they're like, "Well, what do I do? I don't have to run anymore." Like, that's it. So,
no,
and you
no,
talked about money
exactly.
before, becoming a billionaire, becoming a man, doing all of that. I remember the day that I first had 7 figures in the bank, and I was like, "Okay." Sex wasn't better, food wasn't better, my car didn't fly, my health didn't radically better. I was like, "Son of a gun." So, it doesn't all money cannot buy happiness. Money buys options, and it buys the ability to do what you want when you want. And that
Yeah.
will give you parts of happiness, but at the same time, you're everything changes. It gives you options, is for what I've said to people.
Yeah, I had a buddy. We were doing business. This was when I was in New York City still, and he had a line that the only difference between money and not is where you go,
Mhm.
how you get there, and where you stay when you arrive.
Yeah.
And that's pretty fucking accurate, right?
Yeah.
Are you driving the kids to fucking Florida in the fucking in a car going back through? Or are you taking a PJ to St. Bart's with the? I mean, and then staying at a rental? Like that's it. You're where are you going? And
Yeah.
guess what? Every like this, we've been to St. Bart's. We've been all these great places. If you're there on a yacht,
Mhm.
there's someone there on a fucking beach in a tent
Yep.
looking at the same fucking stars for one
Yep.
100,000th of a price that you fucking
Right.
paid. Same stars, same
Same
experience,
stars, same experience, not the same experience, but
experience. But yeah,
I remember I decided I wanted to be wealthy when I was on a plane. I grew up very poor. That I walked on a plane and I didn't know what business class was. And I saw these people sitting in business class, and I'm a decent sized guy, so I'm good, just over 200 pounds. And the seats ended basically before my shoulders begin. So if you and I are sitting next to each other on a plane, one of us is leaving off that flight pregnant. That's just how
right,
big
right.
together. So for me, when I saw business class, I was like, I don't care what it takes, I'm doing that. I don't
Yeah,
care
yeah,
how much it costs me, what I need to sacrifice. I am not being jammed up to some complete stranger where him and I are, sharing
yeah,
sweat. It's
yeah,
gross. So I agree. I also think that money is an amplifier. So again, I don't drink, but if you were a jerk and you started drinking, you're going to be a bigger jerk. If you're a goofball and you start drinking, you're going to be a bigger goofball.
100%.
Money's the same thing
Yep.
as you go into it. So, what are some of the things you're talking about breakthroughs with your clients? What are some of the breakthroughs that you've had where, or one of the processes that you get your clients to have that breakthrough?
So, first, you got to get them aligned with the realization of like, if working more hours, and harder was the answer, you would have already been there, right? Like, and
100%.
like, but they don't see that. Like, so you got to just like, yep, okay, well, cool. That's not the answer, or you wouldn't be here.
Well, I think it's
So
because we're taught that, right? We're taught that from the very beginning. Work hard, you'll make more money. That
yeah,
then, if that was the
yeah,
case, then the janitor would be a bazillionaire. So no,
right.
that's not the answer.
No, for sure. So, usually kind of comes down to trying to diagnose what they perceive their problem is, right? And kind of going through that whole process and like, okay, let's fix that for the business. But then I really start going to the goals, like what's important to you? And it's funny that people don't often have that. Like to me, I can tell you right there, like my family, like whatever, like my family wants, that's fucking what's important to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, and legacy, of course, but like legacy is kind of selfish, but also for my family. So like that's it. And that's a knee-jerk answer, but so many people don't really know, like, why am I doing all this? What is that whole purpose? And they feel lost, and they kind of lost themselves and identity in their job, in their career, and like forget it. Like think about it, right? And especially like in the doctors that we work with, that's an easy example. They all they all went through the exact same cycle. Something in them as as a youngster said, hey, they were obviously very smart, but like, hey, I want to help people get better. I want to help sick people. That's the basis premise. Like when the kids are playing doctor, like that's the basis premise. They went to school, medical school, all this debt to find out you don't really fucking help people. But it's like kind of like, so then they go out like, well, fuck that shit. I don't want to do that. And they go and do 10 years in ER medicine or whatever they do. And they leave and they get into like concierge medicine and cash. So they've got halfway there. They're now back and they're rejuvenated because they're happy because they're actually helping people. So they've got that. So they feel purpose. But then after a while, they're like, well, now I'm just chained to my phone. It's a different thing. Yes, I'm helping people. It's better, but now I'm kind of changed. So they just lose themselves, and then helping them kind of find that, working back through, like, okay, you are chained up here. This is your thing, but it does not identify. It doesn't define you. Like unless you want to leave this forever, like, but that's hard to do with medical practices because usually it's a person. So, what is your life after this, right? after you sell it, I can help you sell the thing. I can help you keep it and just have a cash machine. You don't have to worry about it. What do you do over here? That takes some time.
Mhm.
It takes some time for them to really kind of go through and do that work, and they have to do it. You can help them and kind of probe and whatever, because like, but everyone else's, you know, what my dreams are fucking different than your dreams, man,
100%.
and they should be.
Yeah.
So I can't project my dreams on you. Like, do this. I can tell you, like, hey, I've got similar ideas or I have similar paths I want to do, and this is what what's works for me, and sharing those experiences. But yeah, just getting them to kind of dig in. But it's tough because you got to build rapport. So like the business thing helps me because like, okay, maybe I'm smart. I've got CV and successful, solve a business problem. Like, fuck, I didn't think that would work. That gives me a lot of authority when they see
Mhm.
that. Like, okay, cool. You want to fucking fix you now, right? And like that's the fun part. Yeah,
Yeah, I would say most people have no idea who they are.
yeah,
And they don't, there's this great line from the movie The Fight Club. It says, "You're not your fucking khakis." So they don't know who you are. And then I've worked with a lot of doctors and they're like, "Hey, I want to heal sick people. I want to do this thing." I'm like, "Cool. Do you want to do it every single day of your life?" They're like, "No." I was like, "Okay, you've just put yourself in a situation where that's your reality." And I
right.
think having residual income, having success, picking yourself up from those failures is realizing that there's a bunch of people who are doing 7 figures a year who are miserable. Because most of the time they show up, at least in my world, entrepreneurs don't have bad days. They have days where they don't have any more days. They're having days where they have a gun in them. And the goal is to help pivot them because there's times where they want to discontinue living is the nicest way I can say it. And I'm like, cool, let's do it. They're like, excuse me? I'm like, 100% let's do it. They're like, Wait, what?" I'm like, let's do it. This life, you don't like it anymore. Let's get rid of it."
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, what do I do? I was like, well, first off, do you want to still be married to your husband or wife? And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "No, let's do it. If you're saying you're
Hey,
good,
what are we going to rip apart? Yeah,
what are we doing? Let's get
yeah,
rid of it. Let's only keep what we want." With the idea that in 5, 6 months, what you want's gonna change. But you don't know who you are and you don't know what your truth is. We talk about this all the time. Imagine most people go to a bar, and as you can tell, I don't drink. They go to the bartender and say, "Hey, can I have some chocolate milk?" And the bartender's like, "Here's a glass of orange juice." And you're like, "No, I'm sorry, can I have chocolate milk?" And then, "Oh, here's 3 gallons of orange juice." "Now here, okay, can I have a glass of chocolate milk?" "Here's 100,000 gallons of orange juice." That person's never going to be happy because they didn't get their chocolate milk. Most
yeah.
people have no idea what their chocolate milk
Chocolate
is.
milk is.
And understanding that what you think your chocolate milk is today, once you get it, you're gonna want something else later. It's
Yeah,
just the nature of the beast.
mm,
It's part of it. So if you think a successful business or anything, the process of success is failure. Of, "Hey, I got this, cool, this worked now. What do I want next?" Because if you took a look at your life and my life right now, and you rewinded it 10 years ago and told us what you have right now, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that version of us was like, "Oh my god, you're a complete, amazing,
you made it. Yeah,
you're a god. How did you do that?" And then we forget that with here, like, "Oh, well, actually, what I really want is this. What I really want is that." And then when you finally get off that treadmill of, "If I get this, I will then be happy," instead of just,
mhm,
"I'm just gonna be happy now." For a
yeah,
dear friend of mine found out that he's got TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. He's a former vet, and he is arguably the happiest individual I know, which is wild to me. I was like, "Your brain doesn't work." It's just wild to me.
yeah.
Anyway, so when you do this and you work, what are some of the first questions you ask a client when they say, "Hey, I want to be successful"? What are some of the first questions you ask?
Successful or just like fulfilled? What do you?
So I love that you brought that up. There is a
Because
difference.
it's way different. That's way different.
Let's explain that difference real quick for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Because like everyone has this outwardly thing of success as what you just described.
Mhm.
It is, um, hey, we got this award, we hit this revenue number, we hit that's what success is. But when you hit that mark, exactly as you just said 10 years ago, and you get there, not really that cool. So it so that's so working them through that, understanding that like, hey, that's just part of the journey, and trying to change that look and like, hey, this is truly not a destination. We're not going to end up anywhere. We're just going to keep kind of going and progressing. That helps reframe their idea of success. And I actually use very similar thing, like, hey, 5 years ago, were you happy?
Mhm.
Um, no. But were you happy so you just kind of work that piece out. The fulfillment piece is what's been a lot of fun, because like that's a harder question to ask. And that's when you kind of get into like, well, why did you start doing this? Right? What's this? What do you want to do after this?
Mhm.
And that's an interesting question, because after, they always think about it as this future thing that always is kind of pushing out. Why isn't after now? Right? I think why after? Why do we wait? And you just change that construct of how we're kind of built. Like, oh, I'm going to retire, so I worked at 55. Like, why?
Mhm.
Why not? Like there's a great book that a friend of mine wrote, Bill Perkins, called Die with Zero. And it's literally just about like, give the kids the money now, donate to charity now. Like don't wait, right? If you want to make that impact, you can do it now. So you look at fulfillment and how like the resources, right? Like the money, to your point, can be used solely for fulfillment. Like that's what like, and then you need to figure out what those times are. Are those experiences? Are those things? Or and most of the time it's experiences with the people they love. And then okay, then you can start. This goes dark, but negative. Like I'm taking my family to Italy next year. I'm sorry, next in May. So 2 months, something like that. 45 people, going to be super expensive. It's my 45th birthday.
Mhm.
It's not really a weird, it's a kind of a weird milestone where like my parents are getting up there. I mean, you just don't know like what's going to happen in 5 more years, right? So I'm going to have that experience.
Mhm.
Fucking, is it typical? No, but do I give a fuck? No, I'm going to kind of do it. So getting them to understand what fulfillment is, but then to start receiving it earlier and just starting to take it. And a lot of times it's just giving them permission
Mhm.
to take it, giving them, because they already can do it. They don't think that it's that right time. And then you just start to change that framework.
So I think there's part of that permission is feeling worthy enough, feeling like I'm enough. And
Yeah.
you've gone through, we talked about this before we're on camera. You went through a pretty ruthless, really intense divorce.
Yeah.
How do you sit back and you go, you know what? Not only I get it, I'm learning, I'm healing, I'm doing the therapy, which again, if you're not doing therapy, go do therapy now. It's a gift you give
Yes.
yourself. It's so
That's the lesson.
unbelievably important.
Right.
And if people are like, oh, it's not manly to go through therapy. I'm like, I can get you responded to the, tier one operators who have been in therapy. These are warriors. They're in therapy
Yeah.
too. So if you don't think oh, I can't do that. It's not hard. Okay, princess.
Yeah.
So, well, welcome to the club. But when you're going through that, how do you refine your worth to say, you know what? I have failed in business. I have failed with my kids, with my wife, with all that. Where you step back and say, you know what? No, I'm gonna have a relationship. We're gonna have a work on fight, or I'm gonna be able to do this and go to the league. How do you go through that process of regaining your worth?
Well, I think you can't change the past. I mean, I've tried. If someone knows how, like, I'll take suggestions, but you can't undo it.
Mhm.
Um, so what we do on these losses and these failures and these mistakes that we make, a lot of times it's, we just dwell in them and we're miserable, whatever. And I think that's a natural thing. But if you can go and change that to be okay, use that as a lesson to make sure like, hey, that's not who I want to be, and not overcorrect, but just make that course correction to kind of go back and like, hey, I want to have that meaningful relationship. I want to be connected. I want to be home for dinner. I want to do those things. Because once you do it, then you just take action and do it, and giving yourself that permission to be able to kind of go through. The other piece is like, okay, you go through a nasty divorce. There's two fucking people in it. And like, it's very easy to put blame.
Mhm.
But and this is true with life, with business, deals, whatever. It's way easier to get to a result and to a negotiation point, and get business or relationships personal when you just put yourself on the other perspective. And I know that sounds so simple, but just understanding, like, just like you guys said, why am I having this visceral action? Why is this so important to me? What's their side? What's their truth and understanding? And then if you can do that, it's selfless and kind of going through it. You can get to a meeting point quite easy. There's a study that in a study. There's a thing I don't know. It happens in all law schools. I know it happens at University of Kentucky here. As I think second year of law, they do like moot court, and they give the prosecution and defense. It's about oranges, and it's an intellectual property dispute, and it's about IP violations. Who owns the IP? And they're just fighting over it. Can't get to an impasse, and the moot court goes on for I think 3 weeks, and basically goes to a judge. They're both kind of fighting out, and like the judge renders a result that's kind of shitty. They basically neither of them get protection IP, so it's now a free for all. So they actually lost protection against themselves to everyone else. They had notes of like what was important to them inside.
Mhm.
Prosecution had a groundbreaking business idea that can revolutionize food source with orange pulp, right? Defense had a remarkable technology in defense for fuel with orange peels.
Mhm.
Had they talked, there was no dispute.
Right.
You take the oranges, I'll take the peels. We're
Yeah.
fucking golden.
Right. And
But
we do that in negotiation. And there was I learned negotiation from Harvard, and we talk about we divide the groups up. Group A wants this. Group B wants this, but Group A doesn't know what Group B wants. Group B doesn't know what A wants, and you have to negotiate with each other, and you do this one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And one of the worst things you can do in a negotiation is talk, because the other person is already all their stuff that they prepared this whole time is stuck in their head, so they're not gonna listen to anything you say
Right.
at all until they get the crap out of their head. So you
Mhm.
walk in, and then you're just listening to their pain point. What do they
Yeah.
really want? And then just assume, and again, this is the only time I will talk about pronouns. That's when you start using, you don't use you and you use we. It's like, okay, how do we get to a point? And you become the same people on the same team to go after a certain thing.
And like I wrote a book called Without a Plan, and like it pisses my staff off. But like what you said is 100% right. I don't prep for meetings.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not unprepared, but I don't prep and like this is how it's going to go, because every time it doesn't go that way.
Oh, every
Right?
single
So like, but it can go better. You're going in for a distribution deal, and it can turn into a merger, right?
Mhm.
I mean, but you have to be open to it,
Mhm.
and that's it. So I agree, 100% go in. Silence is magical.
Mhm.
Hey,
And then you identify their pain. Let's
yeah,
identify what their pain is, identify what they want, and then in the process of giving them what they want, you get what you want. Happens
right.
every single time. But these are techniques and strategies that most people don't know, and they need to sit down and they need to work with someone. They need to find a coach. They need to find someone that they can strategize with. They need to find someone that they can connect with who's been there. And again, if you're searching for someone as you're going through this, find someone who's proven by having failures. So if people want to track you down, if people want to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that?
So I'm Jeremy S. Delk on all socials. JeremyDelk.com. Check out the book. It's on Audible and Barnes and Noble, Amazon, wherever you get books. And yeah, reach out. JeremyDelk.com. You can go book a discovery call, and you got a really interesting business idea. You're going through something. If you're just starting out, probably not the guy for you. If everything's going really well, not the guy. Like I like the dumpster fires and like shit's fucking falling apart. Like
Those are
I'm
fun.
the man. Like that's fun.
Yeah. Man, I really appreciate you coming out and being so vulnerable and talking about it, because there's a bunch of people who will just show you the shiny stuff and there's
Yeah,
not authenticity, but the people who are actually proven, the people who actually have done this, oh yeah. We've had our bumps and our bruises, and I think the biggest takes away are, get your ego out of the way. Get
yeah, and
therapy
just keep
in,
going.
understands, yeah, just keep fighting the fight and getting back up.
That's right.
Man, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Success isn't about avoiding the fall. It's about how fast you get back up. Every setback is data, every failure is fuel, and every loss is a lesson waiting to be learned.